Welcome to the StudioPTBO podcast. We are back, and I'm here with my colleague Neil Morton and Cabbie from TSN.
Thank you very much for having me, fellas.
Exciting.
Cabbie, this is great. You're here. First time ever in Peterborough, Ontario.
That is a factual statement.
And it's already become one of your favorite cities in the world. This is amazing.
Despite
he loves
the
it
fact
here.
that he almost got lost.
Yeah, he almost ended up in Warsaw or Apsley or Cohill, but somehow miraculously I saved him. He called me, said, "Neil, can you rescue me?" So
listen, you have like your third eye. It's just unbelievable. It's almost like you were a Google satellite, and that's how I ended up here.
Of course you were.
But you are here, Cabbie. We really appreciate it. A little bit of the backstory here. A few weeks ago, I did a story on a backyard curling rink that Aaron Kemp's doing, and ended up TSN producer contacted me after seeing the story on PTBO Canada, and then Cody went and filmed an episode there with Rob, got wind that you were going to be in town.
Yes.
So I did what I do and what we do on social media. You DM someone on Instagram.
Yeah,
It's crazy
yeah.
how
So
that
I
works.
DM Cabbie, and I'm like, "Cabbie, yo, you're coming into town. Do you want to drop by our podcast?" And I'm really grateful you're here today to do this
problem.
with
Yeah,
us.
likewise.
Well, thanks
me as
for the
well.
invitation. I appreciate it. You guys
Yeah.
got a nice little setup
I'm
here.
sure you checked us out first. You're like, "Who is this guy randomly?"
I did. I like the setup. I haven't unfortunately listened to many episodes, but I like the setup, and I know this will be a pleasurable experience.
Yeah, hopefully you'll listen to this one. So, Cabbie,
No, I don't want to listen to my own.
I know. Who wants to watch themselves?
The others
Neil
that,
does every night.
Hey, no, listen. It's like, a baseball player has to watch his at bats.
Yeah.
You know, hockey
Totally.
players got to rewatch the film.
100%.
Football players got to rewatch the
100%.
tape.
Yeah.
So it's fine to rewatch your podcast.
So you don't
right?
say a million times. That's what
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it's the worst thing. Like I used to do a lot of TV in Toronto, and I'd come home and I'd say to my wife, "So how'd I do?" And she'd say, "Well, you did great, but you said a million times." And it's like, so then you overthink it, right? And other times. So anyway, but I'm digressing. Cabbie runs a great show on TSN. Cabbie Presents
Thank you
on
very much.
TSN Sports Center. Cabbie is to me an icon in sports journalism because of how he's approached sports, really quirky. And he asked the offbeat, irreverent questions that no one else asked. And he got it started as an intern at The Score years ago. And he basically, I love this. You basically tell the story of how you pitched the show, Cabbie in the Street, back in the day.
I was an intern at The Score, and I was just writing scripts for some of the hosts. And after a few years of getting a little bit more comfortable in the environment, two of the weekend hosts, a lady named Lisa Bowes and a gentleman named Steve Coulias, they wanted to change up their show. So in the lineup, to make it different than the weekly or the Monday to Friday sports highlight show. So they wanted to add a man on the street. So they like, "Hey, what do you think about this idea of being a man on the street?" And I was like, "I don't know." At the time I was like trying to be an actor, and I was appearing in like these, little Tim Hortons commercials and here and there, and they're paying my rent and like, "Oh, I could buy a new MacBook." And you're like, and I might get a gig like once every 8 months, which I can buy a new TV, that sort of thing. So I found a guy at work, this dude named Brian Roy, who had graduated from film school about a year before I met him, and he had a camera. He had a Canon. He had an XL1, which predates the DSLRs, which are all over the place. I believe you guys are shooting with them here. Yes, you are. Beautiful cameras. Anyway, point is, started doing a man on the street segment, and I would just go harass random Canadians, mostly at like college campuses and university campuses, because those are people my own age.
Sure.
And there's always a bunch of people around, so I'd ask like about mascots, stats, like really, they were terrible segments. So after about a year and change, I got an opportunity to work at Sportsnet and work on a magazine show. So something with a different format, half an hour. So NBA XL and a show called J Zone. And I was contributing on J Zone. I was hosting NBA XL with Namagini Kiwanuka. And that was the first time I really got to interact with athletes. Most of the times it's like just people in the street, but like I think the first time I interviewed Kevin Garnett, I was like so starstruck. And I still get that every once in a while. Like, even though the segment started in 2001, and here we are almost at the end of 2020. I still get starstruck now, but it was like when it's clicking, and you guys know because you've interviewed many people. When the vibe is right, it just feels awesome.
Yeah, totally.
And when I try to break that wall of
And you do.
reporter and athlete. Thank you. And I want to crack them, want to get them to laugh. So once they buy in or they start laughing, then I feel like it's been successful. But it started with Lisa and Steve just like, hey, we have this idea. What do you think? And then I just ran with it. And
kudos to the Score for trying it. They were really early on in that stage, right? Really in their indies, and like to innovate made sense, right? To do the opposite of what everyone else was doing at that stage. So it would have been welcoming that you offered that up, right?
Yeah, and because the Score was so small, the major players obviously were TSN, where I am now, and then Rogers Sportsnet, these big, huge networks. And the Score was like, we were like...
There wasn't a lot of red tape.
No, there wasn't. And there were so few people there that we could take chances and create just all kinds of content. Coolius had the idea for ice surfing, which is just, bouncing around between hockey games, and eventually I love it. We had to kill that because we got a phone call either from the NHL or from TSN, like, "Oh, we're the rights holders," so we couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah. There goes our NHL rights or our future ones.
Pretty much, right. And then also just a lot of the talent that emerged from the Score: Elliot Friedman, Sobalski, Sarah Orleski, Tim McAuliffe, obviously. Sid Sixero, Adnan Verk. There's a bunch of us that came from. And my producer Dave Cricks, who was a genius in his own right. It was just there was so much talent there, and I got to shout out Anthony Ciccione, who was the boss who ran the whole network for identifying talent and also just giving people
let you have at it. And that's what we try and create here. Like, just let people have at it. Let them try things. What's the worst thing that can happen? It can fail.
And that's the biggest thing. At bats, and the opportunity to do things is the thing that really sets people apart. Giving them opportunity, giving them chances to really shine is really the main reason why we've had the opportunity to do what we've done.
We're a startup like the Score was back in the day, but it's what you make of it. And Cabbie made a lot of it. So you were on this startup and you hustled, but you always stayed true to who you are. And if you look at Cabbie's social media game on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, he's very authentic, and that's why athletes are attracted to him. That's why he's been in Kobe Bryant's helicopter and Mike Tyson's backyard.
Thanks,
and
man.
it's but it's true. Like, people are truly drawn to authentic people, and how you are now with us right now in person is how you are on camera. Yeah. And I'm like, I expect, is Cabbie going to show up and be like a diva? And I'm like, nah.
But like, someone that looks like me cannot have any kind of arrogance or like I look in the mirror every day and it's like, I don't always like what I see. So I'm just a very regular dude. So like, we were talking about talk about Captain Crunch or Golden Grams, just as an aside before we started recording. Bro, I was eating Golden Grams 2 nights ago, like about 3:15 a.m. watching the Gotti movie on Netflix. Like, that is part.
Late night binge eating with Cabbie should be now. That should be a podcast, right?
It's a terrible way to live. No, it's my life, but it's a terrible way to live.
That's a great brand.
Yeah, but it's authenticity. It's authentic to. I would watch that.
So speaking of that, so Netflix and binge eating late at night, but you're a pop culture addict too. So it's really, that's what athletes are attracted to you about too, and celebrities, is that you really meld in all your videos too, like pop culture. You'll show scenes, and it's like, it's totally different approach to journalism, and I wouldn't even call it.
No,
I think first and foremost, you're probably an entertainer, right? Like, so Cabbie's background was he was at Ryerson RTA program, my old school. Went to Ryerson for journalism, great school. And you wanted to be an actor back in the day, right?
In high school, I just ripped off Will Smith and Jim Carrey and Martin Lawrence. I just ripped like mercilessly. And if I ever I met Will Smith once, but I didn't bring this up. If I ever meet Jim Carrey or Martin Lawrence, I'll just tell him, like, listen, I owe you. I'm not sure what the dollar amount is, but I borrowed a lot of your IP, and I would just try to make girls laugh. And it worked, because the jokes are really funny, and they're very charismatic individuals.
And they didn't know that you were ripping them off, 100%. The girls, right?
They thought it was like, listen, how could you not watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Like, I'm just reciting what Will said at 5 o'clock on CBC when I watched the episodes.
So when did you become you?
Good question. I don't know. I like, we're all kind of products of our environment, right?
Sure,
and so
totally.
I guess I've just been borrowing all these little things to make it. It's kind of like Quentin Tarantino, just has all the borrows from all over the place, and then he makes his films. It's derivatives, and then makes. Anyway, I'm rambling. When did I become me? I guess you know what?
When did you become self-aware enough to know? And it's a journey we all go through. I think you're 40, 41 years old. I'm 47. It took me a long time to really find myself and be confident and be super self-aware. So did you have that moment in your 30s?
Yeah, like, was there like a defining moment like that you kind of said to yourself, like, this is who I want to be, and this is where I'm going?
It's when he was in the helicopter with Kobe Bryant. Kobe said, Cabbie, you got to keep it chill, man.
It's pretty surreal.
Just keep it chill.
You know, I got humbled early at Ryerson because I met a group of dudes that were so much smarter and funnier than, and you know, when you're in your high school and you have a certain level of visibility, like you think you got some confidence or whatever. Yeah. You know, I played sports, not very well, and I did like plays. I was one of the few, or maybe the only person that was like back and forth with the sports and the arts like that. But at school, so I went to school with my friend Husmat Havji, who's an actor, my friend RT, or Randall Thorne, he just directed an episode of Blind Spot on NBC.
Oh, cool.
The guy that created Blind Spot, Martin Garrow, was also in our class on NBC, and he's written like 3 or 4 other shows. Adnan Virk, who's most recently with ESPN, he was in our crew.
Something in the water at your school, man.
Yeah, and then
great teachers.
There are one of our dudes we call the dude. His name's Andrew Leshevsky. He writes for Gizmodo, and Mike Kiss is a writer for. He writes like animated cartoons. Wow. But so anyway, so early, like I was like the 7th funniest guy in our group. And there were 8 guys in our group.
That's pretty self-aware.
So like that was like, ooh. So I had to
really hustle.
100%. And like I had to like try to pick my spots for like the jokes or whatever. And then in the the videos, back then we didn't call content. We just called them videos.
Really? Right. Okay.
So in the videos that I wanted to make, I was like, I gotta find. It was just, I don't know if it was a direct decision, but it just, I think inherently, I just formed the way I was going to present myself to the audience, and I was just going to be me. I was going to wear T-shirts, wear baseball caps, and when I was speaking with athletes, I'm going to speak the way that they speak. And we all love, at the time, growing up, everybody loves sneakers. Obviously, love girls, cars, movies, and the same music. So even when I was dealing with hockey dudes and baseball players, basketball players, we're all kind of this sort of hip hop generation. So when I was speaking about, I can reference a Jay-Z line or a Kanye line or Nas, and then also talk about Tarantino or the new Jordans.
Your pop culture encyclopedia.
To them, you're speaking their language.
Yeah,
so,
like
absolutely.
their dudes were. So that was advantageous.
Where I really found you was on social media, and that was like kind of like that was like kind of the discovery point for me. You have a really active social media following, but you also have a really active, you post a lot of content. Like you recently did an advertisement with Amex.
Yeah, thanks.
So
thanks.
Where was the bridging gap between what you were doing with TSN to what you're doing, with brands, kind of almost seen as kind of like an influencer in your own respects, like you doing, brand deals and doing stuff like that. Like where was that, that gap that kind of bridged you into social media?
Good question. I think when I got to TSN, the first thing that we did, I think it was I did an Advil campaign. I did one by myself, but then I did one with Kate Burness. Okay. And I can't remember if there were social media components to that campaign. I think we were sharing out there's a contest, send in your highlights. And then shortly thereafter, I think the first brand partnership I did was it may have been with Amex. And it was about traveling, how do you pack your sneakers in your bag, just simple travel hacks.
Totally.
And I want to say that was 13 or 14. It was right around when Instagram still hadn't replaced Twitter as the primary destination in the culture, in the destination where people absorb content. Yeah. Twitter still ruled, but it was 13, 14. And then I just made a decision because I'd seen Casey Neistat on YouTube, because I'd seen.
So you were observing other people that were doing these things like Casey Neistat and all these guys.
Gary Vaynerchuk was on your radar probably, or not at that point?
Not at that point. Yeah. I think maybe Casey, because Casey was doing daily vlogs. I remember he went to the White House once and bowling in the. I was like, this is sick.
Super early adopter towards
and
vlogging.
They were called vlogs back then.
Yeah.
Maybe they're still called vlogs, but
you were early to the game though.
But I wasn't creating that content, but I was absorbing it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to want the stuff that I would do just to have a certain aesthetic. I wanted to be to be produced, and I'm naturally a producer. All the segments that you see on TV or on Instagram, though, I cut those with an editor, and so I'm very involved in that. So I just want that the brand extension. I want it to be a polished product, because I'm not a really polished dude, but and we all have our digital selves. Well, I was at a shoot. I was at a shoot earlier, but we have our digital selves, and then we have our real selves. The guy that's eating Captain Crunch or Golden Grams at 3:15 in the morning.
That's the podcast he's going to launch here. I want to see that.
I want everybody to see that.
Golden Grams with Cabbie.
But even last night, I noticed you posted an influencer post. Like it was branded to Sobeys, but it was really like, I don't know how you line that up with them. Like it was literally contextualized to DeRozan's return, which I thought was really smart and intimate and personal. So how did that line up last night?
So
was that planned knowing DeRozan was going to be here a few months ago? Or was it
kind
of a little more spontaneous than that?
No, there was some planning. There was some planning. I had, it was my third. So with these brands is, you have a certain number of posts that you have to create, or number of content. It could be 3 posts, 4 posts, whatever. Right. So I said to them, this is a contest that specific for the Leafs and the Raptors. You can win the ultimate suite experience. So you can bring your buddies, and they'll dress up a suite to look like somebody's house, and you'll get to, you'll go to the game. So I said to them, well, I would love to post during the game, because for me, I recognize that my audience is the most engaged during live events, during sporting events. Yeah. Since I'm a sports guy, that's where the audience is. I'm going to speak to a sports audience, generally speaking. So I knew that DeMar returning to Toronto would be a huge game, and a lot of people would be tuned in. Yeah. So my friend,
it was awesome. I just pulled it up here. Maybe we can zoom in later on the camera. I was researching him last night, and I know
we can probably throw it in the bottom.
Yeah, we'll throw that up later. But it got a lot of engagement. So it got 2,677 likes and a lot of comments. And it felt, again, it felt real to who you are. It felt authentic.
Would be watching that game. If I wasn't at the arena, I would be watching that in my living room
Would you really be eating that food, though? That's really healthy eating.
No, bro, there's a good deal. There's a grilled cheese sandwich. There's popcorn. Neither of those are healthy. I mixed in a salad, which I haven't eaten. Yeah. Which I'll eat today.
But you're saving that.
Yeah. Anyway, it was smart. It was clever. And your game. So Cabbie has 165,000 followers on Twitter. You were early to the game with that, I would say, to build up that, because it was easier to get organic follows back in the day.
Yeah, it was. Twitter had just exploded, and I think I got in March of 2009, and the first time I was tweeting, I went to the Final Four in early April. It was in Detroit, and I was just making some offhanded comments about what I was just observing, and it was at Ford Field. I believe UNC won the national championship that year. They had Tyler Hansbrough, and who else was on that damn team? I can't remember now. Anyway, that's when I was just I wasn't I'm eating cereal. I wouldn't tweet like that, because I remember that the internet is forever, so I wasn't gonna ever put myself in a position.
So you were thinking that way even back then.
For sure.
Wow, so you're hyper aware.
There's a lot of actors, and there are a lot of celebrities back at that point.
And we're saying I'm brushing my teeth right now.
Yeah, that were documenting.
Getting mundane.
And it's just too mundane. But also, I just knew that I wasn't gonna I might say something stupid in a kitchen or at a watch party or something, but I don't want to put that online. So
totally.
I was always aware of there's consequences.
So March 2009 you started.
I believe so, yeah.
That was me. March 2009. You and I started. And it was Shanann Giovanni from the National Post. I remember in that month he said, Neil, because I'm editing magazines, he said, you should be on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
This thing's going to be huge. Do you remember Shanann Giovanni, one of the gossip columnists in Canada? I'll never forget that moment. But it's
sure.
So Cabbie, early adopter, and on Instagram, 82,000 followers and tons of engagement. And I think probably there you're finding you're getting more engagement or less than Twitter. Probably
Twitter. No, actually Twitter I think is plateaued. For me, it's plateaued probably the last 2 years, and Instagram has been where there's been a boom. We're just in the culture now where people love candy, and they just go on Instagram when they have a moment of boredom, or they're just a moment of waiting at a light. They're like, oh, let me just get my little candy fix, that little dopamine fix, just to see if there's a notification on the heart, if anybody's commented on a post.
Totally.
And I'm like that too. I'm just a regular person, and these software companies have just, they've re-engineered our brains so that we always want this dopamine hit of the.
And my daughter Avery and my other daughter, they've grown up on it. I can't imagine, right? We're more digital natives, digital immigrants. They're digital natives. They were born on it. It's their umbilical cord. But so I love it. We've managed to grow a brand on social media, a social modern agency because of that,
awesome.
social channels.
It's pretty crazy.
It's
when you sit back and actually think about the fact that you know, like how far everything has come. Like, you know, you look at Twitter as a platform, you know, it's plateaued, but you know, a lot of people are still posting a lot of content. Are you still posting like actively on Twitter? Have you gone more over to Instagram? Like, is that kind of like more your thing now, or are you still posting on both platforms?
I still post on both platforms. I go to Twitter for information.
Yeah.
In the morning, I prefer to read Twitter first just to see what I've missed overnight.
So more of a news kind of like,
yeah. And then for certainly during like live events, I'll see highlights there, but I also see highlights on Instagram as well.
Totally.
But and then Instagram is literally pretty much for just candy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I find that there's much more engagement on Instagram for the content that I create. And both Kate Burness and I we made a decision probably around the same time 3 years ago that we were going to make a push to build our personal brands. I mean, she's got the lifestyle, like lifestyle, health. She's a huge sport. Like she goes to college football games in you know, Conference USA. Like she's a huge sports nut. And then me, I love pop culture and sports. And
you show all those sides of yourself.
I try to.
I love it. Yeah, and
Thanks.
what Cody said, here's what's interesting to me. I kind of grew up, if you will. I'm older than you, watching you on the Score. I'm like, Cabbie, I'm loving what he's doing because I appreciate being in that world of journalism and storytelling. I'm like, he's an innovator. But Cody, how you discover him, like you said, is on social.
Yeah.
So you literally are hacking attention now of a whole new generation.
Yeah,
like,
hacking attention on both generations.
On both
you know,
generations.
Like, you know, it's like you're hacking attention of like somebody like Avery, your daughter,
100%
on, you know, social, and you're hacking the attention still on traditional media.
And
so
guess
it's
what?
Really cool.
And they can go back and search you, Cabbie plus YouTube plus Kobe or plus Will Ferrell, and like it's incredible. Like if I were you, I'd actually go back, if you can, take those snippets and post them on Throwback Thursdays to your Cabbie Instagram channel, and they would blow up.
They would totally blow up.
They would totally blow up.
If you could cut those pieces apart, like of like quick, like little, like, you know, 30-second snippet of you talking to Kobe, like that would crush it.
Because they're on YouTube and they're doing really well, but a lot of people don't necessarily find them on YouTube. But how they're finding you is they're going to find you on Instagram now. So
and
sorry to give you real time. Not that you don't need it. You're doing great when you're, but I'm just going like right.
I would just like to see it. You know, like it's more than that than anything. Like, you know, be able to like kind of see those throwbacks, like those little 30-second cuts of like, you know, the best part of those those actual interviews.
Well, maybe I will. I still have a bunch of tapes in my basement on formats that don't exist anymore. Yeah. But I should try to digitize them so that they can live forever.
So like what type of advice would you have for like, you know, somebody that's up and coming within the media industry right now? Like, you know, what is like one piece of nugget that you got as a younger kid, like kind of you know, coming up in the media industry?
The landscape was different, man.
Yeah.
You know, to now, like YouTube and the digital world has sort of democratized content, and videos. And so people, and I often say to people, I said, work on your writing first so that you can develop your point of view. They say your voice, but it's really just your perspective. Like, will you be someone that's heavy into analytics, someone that takes a more satirical approach to things, more observational, political, whatever? Just, you know, fine tune your perspective, and then if you're clever, you'll stand out from your cohorts, and then just like get reps in. Like which is great, you know, if you're creating content, like you guys. I mean, we're the same age, but how old are you? Like 20?
28.
28?
Yeah.
Man, you look like a child.
You get called for sure. Yesterday he looked 40. Today he looks 20 because he shaved his beard. Yeah.
Yo, Cody, hang on to your youth.
That feels good. You know, that feels really good.
But Cabbie, this dude has amazing genes.
Oh,
you look 30 years old.
Look 30 years old.
You're 41. I don't mean to. Yeah.
Thanks. And listen, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I appreciate probably my mom. But I appreciate that. But I was saying, for your youth, hang on to your youth. Because we're only young for one. We're 20 to 40. And that's it, bro. And then we're old forever. So, yo, no more beards.
It's funny because I say that to Neil all the time. I'm like,
but Neil doesn't look 47. He probably doesn't act 47 either.
No, I love my life.
Listen, if you're a creator, we're in the young man or young person's
I feel
world.
like I'm just getting started.
Of course.
Move back to Peterborough, building this brand. We're gonna scale out of here. Like I feel like getting you on the show. Like I love it. I love it, man. It never. And what you're fundamentally saying too is find your passion. And I think this generation more than any other is like, I want to be happy. Like I don't want to go into a career just just for a job, but I want to find something I love to do with my life. And I think it's shifting that culture.
It might be. I'm wired a little bit different, but I think you might be right. Like people are, listen, we're humans. We are pleasure seekers.
Yeah.
And we want the path of least resistance to pleasure.
Right.
And maybe that's why we're so addicted to Instagram, because like, oh, this picture looks pretty. This video is funny or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, I feel like you and I are probably hardwired differently where, you know, we had to put in a lot of work to take steps forward in our careers and get to places where you've got a whole agency. You're creating content. I'm creating content on a different platform, but it's just no one was like. I'm not saying that people are just handed things now, but certainly when we grew up, nothing was given to us unless our last names were the last names of the executives that ran whatever media companies we worked
totally
for.
Different.
And we didn't have social media, to your point, too. So we had to put in extra hustle because it was harder to grow your brand quickly then.
Yeah.
It's easier now.
Totally.
Right?
The internet's now the middleman. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cabbie, so what's the plan for you now moving forward? You know, you've interviewed some of the biggest celebrities in the world.
There are more to
like
interview.
LeBron's probably texting you right now, Kobe.
Right.
But what I mean, I know you are goal driven. So you're, to me, in the infancy of your branding because of social media. I think you're going to hit 100,000 on Instagram. But how do you leverage that? What does it mean to you? It's not all about monetizing, but what does it look like for you? I mean, you must have other goals in mind.
Well, I just want to keep creating cool-ish. Like, listen, when I was in high school, my formative years were making really terrible home movies with my buddies. Whenever my parents would take my brothers to baseball tournaments,
It's interesting.
my friend Henderson had the camera, and then we would shoot like a fake talk show in my basement, or we'd do a fake gangster movie. Like we're like 15, 16, like every summer we'd do one of these terrible home video. We'd do the Christmas video. So I just want to make like cool material that will resonate with people and that they'll just want to share. Like I'm definitely not a journalist. You mentioned earlier, I entertain the audience first, inform second, whereas my colleagues like James Duthie, Bob McKenzie, Pierre LeBrun, yes, they inform the audience first, and Duthie does a great job of entertaining. He doesn't have to, but he does because he's just an amazing talent. So, you know, there are concepts and concepts that I want to explore and I want to do. I want to do some material with kids, because kids are they're really funny, and I love that they have no filter. Hopefully we're not there's a lot of helicopter parenting right now, so hopefully that doesn't suppress their filter or whatever.
Their opinion,
and then there are a couple of ideas in my brain that I'd like to do that, I look at Fallon, Kimmel, Corden, Conan, Samantha Bee. They have these great bits. Like, you know, Jimmy Kimmel tells parents to tell your kids that you ate their Halloween candy, or plug out the TV while they're playing Fortnite and see the reactions. James Corden singing karaoke in a car. Jimmy Fallon does all these just board games and whatever. Conan is the clueless gamer, or he'll like take a lift somewhere.
One sticky kind of thing, right? That they find a stick.
I would
that,
love
like
And I've written. I was just talking to Sagan the other day. Or I saw Tyler Sagan 3 days ago, and I wrote a prank for him. And I was like, it's not the right time. We just had a mom's trip. The Dallas Stars had a mom's trip, and I'd written this prank for him like 4 or 5 years ago. And he goes, we were talking about that prank for like 2 hours. I'm like, oh, I have like the best sequel. I'm not necessarily smart enough to do like a prank show, because so many of those have been done, and I don't know if I'm creative enough to keep. But I want to just do fun bits.
I hear you.
I would love to be able to do them for the rest of my career, however long that goes. But that's what I'm into. I'm still a kid at heart, and I
love it, man. And I love that you were doing that as a kid in Cambridge. You grew up in Cambridge, Ontario. I wish
you like. Do you know any of my ex-girlfriends?
Yeah. I followed them on Instagram. Not kidding.
they're actually on their way in.
I better get out of here, because I wasn't nice to a couple.
But imagine, like, say a Tom Green in Ottawa started on cable TV, right? So he was a pioneer in his regard. No one thought of doing that. And like what you're basically saying, I mean, you could have approached cable TV, Rogers or whatever in Cambridge, and said, yo, I got these home movies. Do you want to put them up? But Tom Green ended up being on MTV because of that. So
that's right.
Really, like, the battle was harder. Our generation, I agree, because it was traditional media, and it's not so much anymore. What I really honestly would love to see.
But now, to your point, the barrier of entry was higher, for us to get in, because there were less opportunities on TV. And TV, you almost like you had to be validated by some force or some executive to be like, yeah, that person is.
Now it's the market that evaluates you.
True,
it's consumers.
and there's way more. There's way more competition in the marketplace. So it's in order, and there's a lot of noise. So in order to get like these little blips, it's just harder. So the competition, man. And I talk with Tim all the time, or my friend Donovan Bennett, or even DK, my producer Dave Cricks, who runs Bar Down at TSN.
Cool.
Just we're in the batting cage, just taking swings, man, and not everything connects, but we still gotta.
You're trying. You're taking at bats.
You gotta test things. Like you know, you gotta test. You gotta learn. You gotta innovate. Like that's something.
And
we're trying to do.
there's so many other people in the batter's box, so it's harder to hit home runs. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No problem. I let me ask you that. So we always work with entrepreneurs, and we're like, I do a lot of public speaking. I'm like, it's your network, and I said to my daughter Avery's in the room. It's like, build your network. She's at University of Western right now. Nice. The networking is just as important as the school to me. Who you know,
agree.
Network your ass off. Totally.
Cabbie, you have a pretty good network.
That's
like,
so bad.
like it's insane. Like, I don't know if you're on text with a lot of these people, but clearly you've developed a friendship with a lot of these celebrities over the years. Like, how do you, or do you at all leverage that network you have of the LeBrons and the Kobes and the Will Ferrells and all these amazing people you've met around the world?
Sometimes, and you know what? I made some mistakes.
Okay.
So
by over asking, or I'll let you answer. Okay.
So the other day I had Ryan Getzlaff in to do a podcast, who's a friend of mine, and he came in at like Sunday at 10. We recorded downtown, studio downtown Toronto, and that was just out of our friendship. But there are times where I made mistakes where I've over texted. I'm in the content game. We're in the content game, so we have to continue to just feed the audience. You know what I mean? And the mistake I made was I've developed friendships with some of these guys, but then like immediately I'm asking them for their time, or I'm asking, and I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have played that card so early. And like, I do have a pretty good network, but I don't want to. I had to pick my spots a little better.
I hear you.
And I made like I'll tell you I used to be pretty good on text with Jonathan Taves, and I kind of destroyed that relationship because I was just over texting, and I was like, "Yo, let's."
I'm
do
going to
a
be
thing.
texting you every day now that I have you on text, Cabbie.
No, that's fine, because I'm not a 3-time Stanley Cup champion like Jonathan Taves. You know what I mean?
Burn a bridge already.
No, he's not going to. But
I'm kidding.
Sometimes you got to pick your spots, and even though on camera, here's another thing: on camera, I can have a great relationship with somebody, but off camera, it could be 100 like totally different.
People are different,
and which has happened. So at times it may appear like I'm best friends with someone, but in reality, we're just like, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Cordial, but not exactly friends.
Sure.
Like, haven't moved into that space of the relationship. So there's some finessing of that as well.
You and Kobe, good friends?
No, we're not good. We're good. We're great on camera, and we're cordial, but like I haven't been to his house before.
Do you have Kobe Bryant on text? Can you tell us that off the record?
I do not. I do not have him on text. No, we follow each other on Twitter. That's about it.
But networking is a big part of your game too, right? And that's real. And it's soft sell is what you're saying. It's like there's a fine line between
very fine, bro. And
okay.
it's like trying to court a beautiful woman, like, or some beautiful dude or whatever,
Yeah.
And it's you have to like. With the finesse, you have to like it's not just like, hey, we're cool. Like, so can you come on my podcast, or can we do this interview when you're in Long Island next week? It's
it's interesting. I kind of like we always say like want to try to provide more value than what we ask for in return, and it's like. And it's so true. It's like, so like, how are you getting these at bats? I guess is it a value thing? Like, is it like, what are you saying to these people in order to, because like there's tons of content creators out there that are like, how do I get this person on my podcast, or how do I get this person on my podcast? Like, or how do I interview this person? Like, what advice would you give to them?
That's hard, man. Because I have the advantage of the platform that I'm on, being at TSN, which is a obviously nationally recognized brand. Yeah. In hockey, it's recognized in the United States. We're affiliated with ESPN, so I can play that card. Like, oh, we're like ESPN Canada, so like. It's a big advantage, you know. So as far as a value proposition goes, that's what I'm offering to be on this. Not that they necessarily really need, they can just, their athletic excellence or their artistic excellence will speak for itself.
Sure.
So sometimes or many times it's just that they have enjoyed a conversation with me previously, and they're like, "Oh, I'll do that again."
Yeah.
Or maybe it's some prop that we created and I brought to them, and then like, okay, like Aaron Rodgers, for instance.
Yeah.
I've done, I think, 7 or 10 interviews with him, and he's an amazing person. I love interviewing that dude, and now we're friends. Like we've eaten burgers at this small little burger joint in the Valley in California when I was out there. So for content creators who are independent or who have smaller platforms, that's a tough question. I'm not exactly sure what I would offer them is. How have you guys found?
I would argue with you, Cabbie,
that
you've built up through your perseverance and hustle and resilience. You've built up to, but it's not so. It's, to me, I'd be drawn to you just as much as Cabbie is TSN now. Like my daughter's generation, like Cabbie, you are a brand yourself. I think you could get a lot of people just being.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, pretty annoying. Like it's a lot to take.
It's really interesting though. I know you don't have a lot of time, but I want to talk about branding here. And what does personal brand? Because it's easier now than ever to develop a personal brand with social media. What does that look like for you? And what advice would you give other people who are building their brand on social media? Being authentic, putting a lot of content. Like, what does that look like?
I made a decision early on to pick my lane. So I have 2 lanes: pop culture, sports. So those are my primary interests in my career. You know, I love tech and I love finance in the world of business, but I'm not. Since I was introduced publicly as a sports guy, then that's what the audience is going to know me for, and I think that's unless I do a complete rebrand,
right.
And I'm like some financial advisor, you know, giving out advice on.
What are you saying, Cabbie?
Yeah, like Afria. That's the stock. Yeah. So for people out there that are listening to this or watching this, whatever your 2 or 3 passions are, or the things that you're really, maybe not even passions, but the things you're into, like it could be sneaker culture, it could be like healthy living, it could be cycling, like maybe start generating content in those areas because that's something you actually really like, and it's not a fake thing. Maybe you become a parent, you're really into parenting, so that's
right about what you know.
100% in your worldview. Yeah. So and I know people Avery's age, like millennials or Generation Z, they have all kinds of interests, and they're not defined by one thing. Like I'm a carpenter. Like when we were growing up, I'm an electrician. I'm an engineer. Like it's like one thing, and you do that for 25, 30 years.
Now it's side hustles.
So many side hustles. There may not even be a main hustle. There could be like 4 side hustles. Like I'm a yogi. I'm a photographer. I'm a writer, and then I'm a day trader. Like all these different things out of the same brain. It's
pretty cool.
It is cool, and you know, and that's a lot of bandwidth to dedicate or to create for those different streams. But find the things that you're really into. I'd say focus on those things, because then you're not really going to hate it. It's not like you're going to be like, say you're an accountant and it's like, you're great with numbers, but you don't really love accounting.
Yeah.
Gardening is your thing, and you're like, you're into horticulture.
Yeah.
You know, stick over there. Maybe have this as your main hustle to pay your mortgage or whatever, but then your real interest is over here.
Yeah.
That's what I would offer.
That's great advice coming in here.
And it's amazing advice, because it's like, it's the side hustle advice that we talk so often about, that idea of like, you can literally, like, I used to be the phone guy. Like, I spent 10 years working at Best Buy, and then I moved out of Best Buy, and now I'm known as the social media guy.
Cool.
Digital marketing. So it's like you can do one thing, but as soon as you start putting out content on another thing, it's like you just go down
to
totally
rebrand quickly or tweak.
It's like you can build a brand within 6 months now, like where back in the day it wasn't like that. So it's super interesting.
Yeah. And what I guess to finish up here, people you meet around the world, like I'm meeting you here, and I feel like I've known you forever. You make everyone comfortable in the room. You're authentic.
Thanks,
and we're drawn to that, Cody, too. We're like, we want to work with good people, be around good people. Yeah. And are you drawn to people like that? I guess that's an obvious question, but we always tell people you're a product of the 5 people you hang out with, sort of. So do you find yourself drawn to authentic, positive people who just want to bring it, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's like such a cliche answer, like,
I say that all the time. So what does that look like? Yeah.
But I do certainly connect with other creators, because I read something, I think I was reading Medium the other day, that like 90% of people are observers, or they are the consumers. 9% of people, and this is online, 9% of the people are the commenters. And at times, we overvalue the opinions of commenters. This is like 9%. And then 1%, the people in this room, are the creators.
Yeah, we talk about this.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So same wavelength, same frequency.
Yeah.
So like other creators, and it's obviously so difficult to just invent things every day or weekly or whatever.
Totally.
So there are a lot of times I'm professionally jealous of like, oh man, I wish I thought of that.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that is such a sick video. There are photographers. I'm like, there's a guy on Instagram named Zach King who does like basically magic. He was like one of these Vine stars, but he's transferred that over to Instagram and does these amazing videos. I'm like, oh, I love this dude. So I gravitate to other creators because we're sort of in the same field, but then I'm also like, I want to absorb some of their greatness, some of their creativity,
You're a
just
sponge.
either by osmosis or whatever.
Yeah.
And then also, but the thing about negative, listen, we've all been in school. We've all been in like traditional, well, man, I don't know about you guys, but we've been in traditional workplaces.
Yep.
There are people who are just like energy sponges.
100%
And
toxic.
yeah,
One person
bro.
can
And,
ruin
like,
a culture.
it's tough.
Yeah.
Laughter is infectious, so
Yeah.
is negative energy. And the people that are just like, just always have something mean to say, I'm like, I'm just going to swerve. I'm just going to hit R1 on the PlayStation joystick and just, spin around them and just not have those people around me. So to your question, yes, I do gravitate towards people that are of similar
Likewise.
energy and want to contribute.
And do you find like the celebrities you hang out with, not hang out with or interview, that most of them are positive people? Like to be successful in life, do you think to get to the top of whatever you want to do in your life, do you think you have to be positive, or can negative people get to the top too? And I know you can't speak to specific athletes, but do you find for the most part, you have the rapport we see on air with people that they are positive people who, or it's not always the case?
No,
Yeah.
I've been fortunate that when I've had these interactions, they've been in pretty good environments, whether it's like practice or maybe even after a game, after a win, where people are in great moods. And listen, the thing I realized early also is like athletes are just regular humans. They have extraordinary talent and they've put in more work than the rest of us have to hone their talent. But then sometimes like I'll get someone on a bad day. I recently interviewed Klay Thompson, and they'd flown, the Golden State Warriors had flown from Oakland to Toronto. They land at like 6:30 local time. They go to practice at the Scotiabank Center, practice for an hour and a half. Now it's 9:30 p.m. for their bodies.
Yeah.
So I don't know when they've eaten. So by the time I get
Jet lag and like insomnia.
and then you're on a plane, and then maybe you have a meal, but then you just go to practice, and then you're just like, I'm hungry. So the PR guy's like, all right, this is like, you got 5 minutes with Klay. It reminded us a couple of days before. And then when Klay on this walk over, who was kind of begrudgingly, didn't really want to do it, he's like, all right, I got 2 minutes for you, man, which is a little bit crushing. So I've gone from 5 minutes to 2 minutes. I planned 5 or 6 minutes in my brain. So now I'm as he's walking over, I'm editing the questions, and then I have to build him back up because he's already like, I just want to go eat. We've all been hangry.
Yeah, totally.
I don't want to do it. So then now I got to build. So it's a lot tougher. So my point is, sometimes you catch guys on bad days, but they've all been pretty good. Like I've never seen anybody be like really rude or mean to, like if we're at a dinner to a server, and I haven't seen that, thankfully. But they're all pretty good dudes, and the best guys are, in my experience, CFL dudes. Amazing to work with.
Interesting.
Baseball dudes, the worst, because
Really,
they don't have the same requirements of media obligations like the other. Baseball, hockey and basketball, you can talk to those dudes twice a day.
Really,
Before,
Okay.
after morning skate, and then after the game. Basketball, same thing.
Probably makes the interview a little easier too. Like,
Because you have a couple of opportunities to get to someone.
totally.
And then football, generally like once a week, like a Thursday, Friday, because they generally always play on Sunday. But
Baseball, unless you get them in the batting cage, is that really the only? You got Jeter once.
I did get
that was
Jeter,
cool.
but Jeter, it would be like, listen, the Yankees would play here 2 or 3 times a year. Yeah. But I'd only get Jeter once a year, and I'd go to every homestand.
Yeah.
But I'd ask him, and he'd like, not this time or whatever. Yeah. And sometimes he would just run off the field, just blow right past me. So it wasn't that easy.
Cabbie was going to ask me the 5 most beautiful women again.
Oh,
you asked
man.
Jeter. Yeah,
wow, you have a great recall, Neil. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you had,
what are
you had your own 5.
Do you feel like sharing your top 5? Is that, no. Okay.
My wife,
in the room.
my wife. Well, my 2 daughters are beautiful too. Yeah. But yeah,
that was a good save.
wow, you have. He's given amazing advice.
Yeah,
like,
tons
we're
of-
so grateful that you.
Yeah, super
No
grateful
problem.
for
No
coming
problem,
to Peterborough.
fellas.
of all places, stop.
Who would have thought these three knuckleheads would be in a room together for an hour?
What do you think of the set?
I think it's dope.
Yeah.
I love the creative design.
Yeah.
I love I need to take a closer look at the backdrop to see. I see the Quaker.
All
I gotta
Peterborough.
look at
Yeah.
all these little elements that you guys put in here. The lighting's great. This is a dope little studio.
I got-
I'm professionally jealous, as I
Aw,
mentioned earlier,
thank you.
of your guys' setup.
From
that.
Cabbie complimenting our set. Can you give a shout out to the Peterborough Pete's? We have 2 of their jerseys here. Are you a fan of are you a huge fan of the Pete's, Cabbie?
I have not been to a game.
Okay, we got to get him to a game.
Yeah,
And I don't know anybody on the current roster.
That's
So
okay. But you've heard of Ty Domi, Steve Eiserman, Bob
Yes.
Gainey, all
Yes.
these legends.
Roger Nielsen, no? Is it?
Roger Nielsen.
He's
yeah,
God rest his soul.
100%. A lot of icons come
There
through.
have been, yes.
Yeah. So no, we're really grateful.
We're
that you came on
super
the show,
excited you stopped
Cabbie.
by.
Yeah.
Like, this was awesome, an awesome opportunity. Really, thank you. Thank you for tuning into the Studio PTBO podcast. We will see you soon.